We're in Lovell Canyon today, outside of Las Vegas, and this is the upper end of Lovell Canyon Road. Our goal today is to find a way up to the Wilson Ridge, and that would be up in this direction. I don't know how I'm going to get through all this brush below. We'll have to test out different routes. And once we get to the top of the Wilson Ridge, then continue on that ridge. You can see parts of it ahead. And continue to a goal of Harris Mountain. Now there is another access that's probably less brush, would be just to head up this road here, branching off to the left from Lovell Canyon Road to the Lovell Canyon Campground, and then take the Lovell Canyon Trail from that campground to the base of Lovell Canyon, and then ascend Wilson Ridge. I want to try it from here though, because we'll get more of the ridge this way. And I want to try to get the entire Wilson Ridge. However, there's a lot of brush down here, so not sure how that's going to work. But again, the goal is Harris Mountain. And you can see the tip of Harris Mountain up ahead. Now, Lovell Canyon on the north side is bordered by Harris Mountain, and then and that's the northeast side. Then Griffith Peak on the northwest side of the canyon. And so the canyon is between Harris Mountain and Griffith Peak. There are two main ridges, one on the east side, one on the west side. On the east side is the Wilson Ridge that leads up to Harris Mountain. On the west side is Sexton Ridge, which leads up to Griffith Peak. And I've got pages on LasVegasAreaTrails.com on Sexton Ridge and ascending Sexton Ridge toward Griffith Peak. So today we're on the other side of the canyon. This should be really beautiful, because if we can get up to Wilson Ridge through all this brush, the views are going to really open up. The brush is going to begin to disappear, and we will see Lovell Canyon below to the left, west of the ridge, and we'll see Kyle Canyon below to the east of the ridge, and the views should just be spectacular. The ascent here, I believe, is in the area of 5,000 feet ascent, so it's a healthy ascent. There are no trails, so no promises how far we get, but this is the initial exploration. We'll see how far we can get. We can at least get up to Wilson Ridge from this point. So here we go. Okay, we haven't gotten very far, but I just wanted to say that there was, right across there, you can see the Beast parked there. That's where we started. Right across Lovell Canyon Road, there were a couple boulders and what looked like they were blocking off an old road, but it wasn't a road. It was a very, very faint trail that actually right here, this is about as nice as it's looked so far. And there we go, up this ridge. And we're going up, I think, the correct ridge. It doesn't help that the sun is blinding me in the forward direction, but at least we are ascending, and we're going to continue up this ridge. But just to say, how we got here was just crossing Lovell Canyon Road, finding those boulders, and then picking our way through a very, very faint trail. So onward. Well, this little trail, and I might call it a trail, be so bold as to call it a trail, but yeah, it is definitely leading upward through what looked like an impossible barrier of brush up to this point. And one thing that we want to miss is the Tortino Ranch over here, which is private land. So we were actually skirting the south side of the ranch as we head up this ridge. Hopefully this ridge will connect with the Wilson Ridge, and just to see some landmarks here. Of course, there's the parking area, the upper end of Lovell Canyon Road, and you can see that unpaved road heading up to the Lovell Canyon campground, and there it goes up through this area. And then looking more this direction, there is a better view of Sexton Ridge leading to Griffith Peak, and we can see just the very tip of Harris Mountain right up there. That's our goal, so we're gonna see if we can eventually angle over. Once we get up this ridge, we're gonna need to angle to the left, and you can see this is the little trail that we're on. So yeah, this was a very difficult challenge just to get through all that brush, but this little trail really helped. And so let's continue on upward. Heading upward to the first high point where we'll be able to look around, see where we are. And then just to give a 360, you can see that the brush has dramatically thinned out. So that's nice. Griffith Peak. And yeah, here's a good look at Griffith Peak and Harris Mountain. There's Griffith Peak, and now you see a little more of Harris Mountain emerging. That's the direction we need to be going. But to get up to this ridge, we need to continue in a direction that's not that way. There's the road toward Lovell Canyon Campground, the upper portion of the campground, and then back down to the Beast where we are parked at the upper end of Lovell Canyon Road. The reason I keep looking back down in that area is that I'm going to need to find that on the way back. This is what things are going to look like. And then you can see other ridges in the area. You can see Lovell Canyon Road descending through Lovell Canyon, and part of Potosi Mountain there. In fact, that might be all of Potosi Mountain, or at least the summit. And so let's continue on up to this high point and see if it connects to something that we need to reach in order to get onto the Wilson Ridge. A few more reference points as we continue to ascend. There in the valley below us is the Tortino Ranch, and you can see the ranch complex ascending through this canyon ahead, and hopefully we're going to be able to cross way above the canyon on the Wilson Ridge, which is our goal. And there is the tip of Harris Mountain, and then over to Griffith Peak, Sexton Ridge descending from Griffith Peak, And you can see the point where we reach Sexton Ridge on that ascent, and then take a right and head up Sexton Ridge to Griffith Peak. So that tells the story of that. And then looking down into Lovell Canyon, you might be interested to know that here is a view of Handy Peak. So if you've ever been on the Handy Peak Trail, we'll do that circuit before too long, maybe sometime in the fall. By the way, yeah, it is the third week in June, and there's a good wind. We're going to put the sound muffler on for future video segments here. There you're looking all the way back down to the Beast where we parked. So yeah, you can see basically where we are as we continue to ascend. There looking down Lovell Canyon, and you can see Lovell Canyon Road continuing on downward toward the bottom of Lovell Canyon, and then across you can see Potosi Mountain. And so you're looking up now in the direction over these ridges would be the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. And then here we are continuing to ascend this ridge. We'll see what things look like at the summit, and hopefully there's a way over to the Wilson Ridge over in this direction. There's a connector, and that'll take us over to Harris Mountain. And by the way, once you get through the forested area in this area of Wilson Ridge, see a lot of pine trees up there. Once you get through that forested section of Wilson Ridge, then things really clear out. I guess there was a fire at one time, we'll find out. And the way gets a lot easier. However, the ascent also gets pretty dramatic. Okay, onward. Okay, I've got my wind muffler on now. Hopefully it's working. And what we're doing here is we've reached this first high point, and you can see the Wilson Ridge ahead. I'm on top of the ridge, and I think the first real high point is right there. So we need to get over there. That's going to be interesting. More landmarks are visible. There you can see the Wilson Ridge stretching toward Harris Mountain. And then there's Griffith Peak on the left, Harris Mountain on the right, and the Griffith Harris Saddle between. And you can see on LasVegasAreaTrails.com the Harris Griffith Circuit, where we took that saddle between Harris Mountain and Griffith Peak. And then you can see Lovell Canyon below. There's Upper Lovell Canyon. Down below us, the Torino Ranch. And then we have Upper Lovell Canyon Road. There's where the Beast is parked. And then the road leading up to Lovell Canyon Campground, which is right Let's see. Let's see if we can nail that. There it is. Lovell Canyon Campground. And then continuing around. Here we are looking south, down Lovell Canyon. To Potosi. And then remembered some of my ascents up to the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline in particular. You could think of the Zion, Little Zion trip. There is the, what I call the landmark bluff. And then you'd be looking up toward the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. I don't know if we're seeing any of it from here. And then over around to the ridge we are on, and continuing our ascent to find a connection with the Wilson Ridge. Okay, onward. Okay, discovery. There is no easy natural way over to this area on the Wilson Ridge below Harris Mountain. As you can see, there is quite the canyon below us. That's the canyon where Torino Ranch is, and I was trying to avoid that ranch. I think that that alternate route that goes up the Lovell Canyon Trail crosses Lovell Canyon and then ascends the Wilson Ridge over in this area. Yeah, that might be easier. So what we've got to do now is, there's no other way than descend into the canyon below and then reascend, and that would should end any huge intervening obstacles. So let's go ahead and try that. And at the least what we're going to do is we'll get over to the other side of this canyon and we'll go along a part of the Wilson Ridge and then descend into Lovell Canyon and return on the Lovell Canyon Trail. And so there is Harris Mountain. Griffith Peak. Handy Peak. Sexton Ridge leading up to Griffith Peak, and then Lovell Canyon below. And then let's just take a look, see what we can see in the other direction. As you can see, there are no easy routes from where I ascended up to the upper ridge up there. So yeah, we are on a kind of peninsula dead end. Necessitating this dramatic descent and reascent up the far side of this canyon here. Okay, onward. Okay, it's time to take a moment to check in. There are the ridges I was on in the last segment. And I came down those ridges, crossed the canyon, and now you can see there's the other side of the canyon. I guess I could have stayed on those ridges. I just didn't trust that they were going to continue, but actually they would have. And that would have been an awesome approach. So next time I just continue up that way. But here I am in the canyon. Here's the other side. And we'll go to the right of these rock formations and then hopefully connect with Wilson Ridge on the other side. So, and above. We shall see. And then just to complete the 360. There's the beginning of Sexton Ridge, leading up to Griffith Peak. And then now looking down toward the Torino Ranch. So yeah, we will ascend up toward the Wilson Ridge, and as I mentioned, above and to the right of those rocks ahead, we'll get up to a high point, look around, and just see if this other ridge, had I continued, would have been a very fine ridge that would lead to the same place with less pain and suffering. So in the meantime, here I am in the canyon heading up. Okay, I'm across the canyon at those rocks we were looking at a bit ago, and I wanted to pass on the right side of the rocks, which I am. Note to self: if I'd stayed on that ridge, it would have been far easier going. And I think it would have wound around. It looks like it continues winding around and up. And then behind this ridge, or connecting with this ridge, just opposite me. So yeah, I didn't need to descend and cross the canyon and then weave my way up through killer manzanita ridges, long ridges that had barrier manzanitas all the way up. So yeah, that ate up a lot of time. So next time I stay on the ridge I started on. I actually had it right in the first place. But now I'm above the manzanita mostly, and this is nice. I'm going to continue on up and then see if I can connect with the upper ridges and ultimately the Wilson Ridge. So continuing on and a little more out in the open. Quick note, above those rocks and to the right, as I thought, there is a saddle. I thought I saw a saddle, and it continues to lead upward more gradually and with less, hopefully less barriers than what I've experienced so far. So we'll go a little further and then I'll show you the bigger picture. And by the way, here's an awesome view of Griffith Peak. And to the left, downward, is Sexton Ridge, Upper Sexton Ridge. Okay, we are now obviously in a pine forest, and there are some pathways here. I don't know if they were made by water animals or humans, but it is a matter of just weaving around, and the pathways suddenly end and then I've got to find a new pathway. So it's probably not made by humans. It's not an actual path. However, my goal is to get to the upper ridge of the Wilson Ridge, and we are heading in that direction, basically. This is really nice compared to the Manzanita barriers that I've been going through below, and it's fairly level, so we may be approaching the upper ridge. We are at about between 7,300 and 7,400 feet. I have to look on the map later to see where that puts us, but continuing along, weaving around, trying to miss the brush. Very beautiful. There's some what I believe are Gamble's oak, which is this, and definitely the pinyon pine, and then there's also mountain mahogany, and I'll show you those when we see some. Looks like I'm at another barrier, so I have to weave through this. What I'd like to do is get up to that ridge above. Once I hit that ridge, I think I'll have a real good perspective on the whole area. Right now we're kind of in the weeds here. So let's continue upward. Well, here it is, mountain mahogany. Okay, time to check in again. We are way up on a ridge here. Not yet at the, I think that the Wilson Ridge summit point is up there. But we can see a number of things. Here we see part of the Wilson Ridge, or the ridge leading to the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. The reason I say that is that you can see Bridge Mountain, Rainbow Mountain, and Mount Wilson through the trees here. Let's see if I can get a better view of them. Yeah, here we go. There's Bridge Mountain on the left, Rainbow Mountain in the middle, Mount Wilson on the right. And then here's where we are on some indescript ridge leading up to the Wilson Ridge high point, which I believe is right up there. And I think we're going to get up there and then see if we can head down the ridge to the right and see if we can make better time on getting down. Maybe we won't be in such underbrush. There's been a lot of Manzanita brush barriers the whole way so far, and maybe heading down the other side of this ridge we can avoid some of that brush. It's wishful thinking, but it does look like there are more open areas over there. So here goes. Let's continue on up and then cross over and head down. By the way, our altitude is just under 8,000 feet. I'm about at the 8,000 foot point, and here you can see a lot. There is the Wilson Ridge leading up to Harris Mountain. Here's the saddle between Harris Mountain and Griffith Peak. Here's Griffith Peak, and then Sexton Ridge leading downward. So there you can see the whole picture. We're about at 8,000 feet and continuing up toward the Wilson Ridge high point, which is, let's see if we can get a shot of it. Well, it's through the trees here. We'll see it in a bit. But it's at 8,500. So we got another 500 feet to get up there. And then we'll decide which ridge to take downward back to Lovell Canyon. Time to check in again. We're almost at that Wilson Ridge high point. And there you're looking at the Sexton Ridge across Lovell Canyon, down into Lovell Canyon. Up to Griffith Peak, down the Sexton Ridge, right where it drops off there is where we normally summit the Sexton Ridge. And up to Griffith Peak, there's Charleston Peak, and here is Harris Mountain and the Wilson Ridge heading down. Then over here is Angel Peak. And let's do a better zoom. Okay, let's zoom in on Mummy Mountain. Zoom in on Harris Mountain. Zoom in on Charleston Peak. Zoom in on Griffith Peak. Okay, there you can see the major peaks, and then we're going to go up a little further to this high point on the Wilson Ridge and then think about how we're going to descend. That should be interesting. I don't have a plan right now. Okay, we are on the Wilson Ridge high point. In fact, I'm just a little below. You see the actual summit, about 8 feet in elevation higher than me. The reason I'm on this side is that the wind is simply roaring and you wouldn't be able to hear anything. But from this high point, let's take a look at what we can see. Here, it's Burnt Peak, El Padre, La Madre Mountain. Yeah, there's La Madre. And you can see the saddled between El Padre and La Madre, and then continuing around. Okay, here's Gas Peak. And then what we're going to do is head over to the left, and you're going to see the Sheep Range. There's the Sheep Range. Now the weather report predicted gusts of wind up to 35 miles an hour in the Las Vegas Valley. So you can imagine what the wind's like up here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and top this ridge. We're going to be in the roaring wind, and we'll look at points of interest from the other side. Okay, this is what we are on the Wilson Ridge high point, altitude 360, and then I'll tell you what we're looking at. Okay, we're already seeing Griffith Peak, down Sexton Ridge, Lovell Canyon below, Harris Mountain and Wilson Ridge, heading up to it. Well, this is going to really test my muffler. Okay, there's the Torino Ranch. The ridge leading down to the ranch is on the right or the left or the south side of the canyon. The left or the south side of that canyon leading down to the ranch. We got to get down to that ridge. Here's some cool stuff. Here's the Lovell Canyon landmark bluff. Potosi Mountain. And then I'm going to show Bridge Mountain, Rainbow Mountain, Mount Wilson. Okay, here we go. Bridge Mountain, Rainbow Mountain on the left, Mount Wilson on the right. And you can see the Rainbow Mountains, Upper Crest, Ridgeline below. And then to the left of Bridge Mountain would be White Rock Mountain. Okay, so we're going to get off this ridge, find a way down, and hopefully get down before dark. A lot of brush to navigate, but this is the Wilson Ridge high point. Really cool. It's 8,500 feet roughly, which is the height of the Madre mountain. And Madre. Okay, we're going to have the wind in our face the whole way down. So here we go. Just want to take stock of where we are here. I'm coming down another ridge, this ridge right here, from the high point. And then you can see where the ridge continues over to that point, and then you're on the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline above Mount Wilson, Rainbow Mountain, and Bridge Mountain from the right to the left. But this return trip is going a lot faster, not just because it's downhill, but because it seems to be a more natural incline. Remember how I went through the canyon on the way up, and there's the Torino Ranch below. So you can basically see our end point. But the reason I'm pointing all this out is that next time to head up this direction, reverse the way I'm going downhill and go uphill, it would be a lot faster. There hasn't been a lot of pointed leaf manzanita barriers on this route, and I just need to get down into the canyon. Let's take a look at it. Actually, not down into the canyon, but down this way. There's a saddle, and then take the ridges up to that high ridge in the center, and then descend back to the start point, which is very close to, well, basically at the Torino Ranch. So everything looks on path here, as long as I can get down this ridge and then circle around and take those other ridges on the south side of that canyon where the Torino Ranch is. So let's just see how that all works out. And then you're looking at Lovell Canyon Road, and there's the landmark bluff. Potosi Mountain, and again, the Rainbow Mountains. Wilson on the right, Rainbow Mountain in the middle, and Bridge Mountain on the left. Okay, let's head down and see if we can connect with these ridges. They look good from this point. So let's go. Okay, time for another check-in. Yeah, this ridge is working really well. This is the ridge I had planned to come up, and for some reason I ended up crossing the canyon below. I guess I didn't think this ridge, when I got on the ridge, I began to doubt that it would continue. There's the Torino Ranch, which is the end point, and as you can see, we're descending this ridge and then down to the end point. So all is going well, much faster than on the way up. Onward. And here's a straight shot up this ridge to the Wilson Ridge High Point. This is definitely the approach ridge to take. I came up this other ridge that we're looking at. It was manzanita barriers all the way. I somehow lost trust in the ridge I'm on now, and so I decided to cross the canyon, which was another problem. A lot of descent followed by ascent again. So wow, just ate up a lot of time. Stick to the south ridge, the one on the left as you're coming down, and one on the right as you're going up. So the south ridge of the Torino Ranch. And we're going to continue down this way. And if it connects with the ridges that we originally took, then this is definitely the way to hit the Wilson Ridge. Another shot of the Wilson Ridge High Point, right up the best approach ridge, which is the one I'm on. We're about at 7,000 feet elevation. So this is the south ridge of that canyon, the Torino Ranch Canyon. There's the north ridge of the canyon. Do not take that. You will end up, remember we crossed at the rocky area on the way. Hard to see in the sunlight the way it is. But yeah, we crossed in front of that rocky area. And it was just manzanita barriers the whole way. And then here's the Torino Ranch. Makes a great landmark. So now it's just a matter of navigating these ridges and then descending to our start point. Here we go. And as you can see, everything's much more wide open here than when I was in the manzanita barrier area. Here's another look up the best ridge. All the way up to the Wilson Ridge High Point. So this is the south ridge of the canyon where the Torino Ranch is. And then the north ridge, do not cross the canyon. A lot of pain and suffering. There's the Lovell Summit Road. Looking down Lovell Canyon. to the landmark bluff on the right, Potosi Mountain on the left, and then continuing around, now looking up to high points, approaching the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. And back to Wilson Ridge Summit. One thing that I forgot is now we have a nice view of Sexton Ridge right in the center. Okay, let's continue down. What we need to do is reach this high point and then descend to our start point at the top of Lovell Canyon Road. Views keep opening up of the best ridge approach to the Wilson Ridge High Point. And here it is. And there's the Wilson Ridge High Point. So far, this is just awesome. This is the way to go. The south ridge of the canyon below. More of a view opening up to the Wilson Ridge High Point and its approach ridge. There's the high point, and the approach ridge just trace down in this direction. Right to where I am now. So there it is, and you can see the whole ridge. And this definitely is preferable. This is the south side of the canyon. The right side as you're ascending. And here we are back at our, at least looking at our start point. So all that's left is to descend this ridge back to the start point. Here we go. And then, by the way, here's a look at the Wilson Ridge High Point and the approach ridge, at least that we took descending. We should have taken it on the ascent also. Would have made life a lot easier. Okay, here we are back at the beast. Believe it or not, what an amazing day. What we did was headed up to the Wilson Ridge High Point. Let's see if you can see it. You can't see it from here. But we started at the very top of Lovell Canyon Road. Lovell Summit Road goes off to the right to the campground. To the left to the campground. And then straight ahead is the Torino Ranch. And what we did was we just crossed Lovell Canyon Road and then made our way through the initial brush on up to the ridge system, and definitely keep to your right. Take the high ridge on the right side of the canyon, or the south side. and it'll take you right up to the Wilson Ridge High Point without too much brush. Near the bottom, there is brush and there's sage, and if you're wearing shorts like I am, it can be death by 1,000 cuts. But once you get about, a mile or two into it, then the ridge takes you right up. You can see the Wilson Ridge High Point. And once you reach that high point, you can take a left and head over to Harris Mountain. It's a pretty cool approach. And at the high point, you're at the same height as La Madre Mountain, 8,500 feet. And you can see all of Kyle Canyon. You can see the Sheep Range, the La Madre Mountains. You can look down into Red Rock Canyon, see Bridge Mountain, Rainbow Mountain, Mount Wilson. It's just a spectacular view that you get up there at the Wilson Ridge High Point. So anyway, there you have it. That's our adventure for the day. We'll be doing more exploration on the Wilson Ridge, and ultimately we're going to head on the Wilson Ridge all the way over to Harris Mountain. And I think if we take this more streamlined approach up to the Wilson Ridge High Point, we might have a chance of getting to Harris Mountain. Okay, that's it for today.